I can make things up in my head. And I need those other brain areas lit up to be like, stop that. Like, stop that.
Yeah,
like, this is,
real.
no, stop that, get regulated and move on. In this episode, you'll discover how emotional regulation is not just a mental skill, but a full body, brain-wide process that can be trained and transformed. Together with NSI educator Matt Bush, we'll unpack what true regulation looks like, why integration across the brain and body is essential, what disrupts this connection, and how do we rebuild it. Welcome to Trauma Rewired, the podcast that teaches you about your nervous system, how trauma lives in the body, and what you can do to heal. I'm your co-host, Jennifer Wallace. I'm a neurosomatic psychedelic preparation and integration guide, and I bring your nervous system into your peak somatic experiences. I'm also one of the educators at the Neurosomatic Intelligence coaching certification.
And I'm your co-host, Elisabeth Kristof, founder of BrainBase.com, an online community where we use applied neurology and somatics for resilience, personal growth, and behavior change. And I'm also the founder of the Neurosomatic Intelligence coaching certification, an ICF-accredited course for therapists, practitioners, and healers to bring the nervous system into all of the good work that you're doing. It is just so relatable, those moments that you talked about, Jen. And I remember in past life, other version of Elisabeth, I would always describe myself as a ruiner. Like in my mind, that was the thing that I said to myself, because I would have these expectations, really wanting connection. I would see the event and then I would just show up and I couldn't control my desire to pull back and to be maybe aggressive or angry underneath, and that was like vibing off of other people, or that was creating a vibe for other people. And every situation where I really had these high hopes for deep personal connection and an exciting experience, it would end up totally in disarray because there was so much emotional dysregulation just going on all of the time.
That's super relatable, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, so talking about the brain networks and the brain areas, one really big idea, since you started to bring this up, is that our brain is not actually divided into separate areas or stages. Like all of the brain is active all the time. It's just a matter of which parts of it are a little more focused on, or which ones are kind of maybe running the show a little bit more and have more influence over the outputs that are created. And so you're right, like basic proprioceptive work, like, mobility drills and gentle movement practices can create such a difference in that cerebellum activation, the prefrontal cortex, and then that turns into emotional regulation, right? We used to have people come into class when we were teaching, and they would show up and very dysregulated, maybe because of a group setting, maybe because of something going on in their life. You never really know. And they would kind of learn the basic drills that we were teaching. They would leave and maybe 6 months later return for another course. But when they come back, if they've been practicing those basic movement drills, they were a totally different person. Like different personality, different emotional regulation, much more open most of the time and engaged. And you kind of do a double take. You're like, who are you? And what happened to, that other version of you? They're like, I don't know. I've just been doing these basic proprioceptive drills, and it creates such a huge difference.
It really
remarkable.
does. Yeah.
So when we're talking about integration, the integration of these networks is really the brain's ability to synchronize three major networks. And this is not three separate brain areas, but just three kind of interconnected spaces. So the first one is the bottom-up inputs, like what's coming into the brain from the interoceptive and proprioceptive systems. Meaning, can I feel what's going on inside my body? And can I feel where I am in space? Okay. Then there's the salience network and the default mode networks. We've talked about these before on the podcast. And so these are our ability to be aware of ourself and our inner feelings, to detect threats, to hold context of what we've done in the past and how it's turned out. And so those set the tone for what our brain is going to be paying attention to and focusing on in any given situation. And then there's the top-down control, which is that prefrontal cortex that we focus on and people talk about all the time, like inhibiting and regulating everything else. But that prefrontal cortex of top-down control, it can't work by itself. It has to be integrated through all three levels, all three networks. Okay. So what's important to note is that when these networks are not working together, they're not synchronized, what we're seeing in the research is it's not just that those areas may be underactive, but they're actually underconnected to one another. So signals aren't being sent appropriately between the different networks and from one area to the next. So if someone struggles to even recognize their emotions, let alone regulate them using these higher order networks, the brain would have a really difficult time distinguishing between real danger versus false alarms. So the body tends to kind of stay in a survival loop, not ever being able to gain traction and then move forward from there.
I associate when I think about like past versions of me, I really associate to that like prefrontal cortex not being as stimulated, or it maybe is in a more suppressed state than other brain areas. And so for me, with my tools, what's really helped me with my emotional regulation is adding a prefrontal load. And then also like a non-negotiable for me is cerebellar training. Like, I really need that, because if I am not in my own regulation and doing my tools, I can make things up in my head. And I need those other brain areas lit up to be like, stop that. Like,
Yeah.
stop that.
Yeah,
like, this
for
is,
real.
no, stop that, get regulated and move on. Because I could get caught in these
In the stories.
in make-believe stories.
Yeah.
I mean, just totally making things up. And so it's just really important that we understand this about ourselves. And like with NSI, when we train people through the certification and NSI Plus, that we really do understand these brain regions and how to get in there and figure out like what are you experiencing, because the tools really do land in real time. And, sometimes you even got to, depending on where I'm at in my life, I'm like, I need to pin that and circle back when I get home, because like I said, I mean, it will just get wild inside my head and I don't want to dissociate.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think any of us want to be dissociating, and whoever's listening and you like resonating with this, like dissociation is not ideal. We want to be in our bodies, and it just causes so much more stress when we are repressing and suppressing and not showing up authentically.
And then when we're dissociating, we're also not getting that connection that we're
Yeah.
probably really wanting.
Yeah.
And that those regions that you talked about, and having the tools to resource them, train them for better fuel, better activity, it is really important for the error correction and for the interpretation of these other emotional signals coming from other people. And then to rein that in, because when the emotional response feels in the body so different or mismatched, we will create the stories around that. And so being able to have checks and balances with that is it's important.
Checks and balances is
And
great.
one quick note, this may be a little bit of an oversimplification, but one of the ways you can know or notice, I should say, that the cerebellum isn't fully online is that all of your emotional responses feel 100% justified.
If this conversation helped you see emotional regulation in a new light, please take a moment to subscribe to our audio channels, and you can watch us now on YouTube. Subscribe to Trauma Rewired and share this episode with someone who's ready to reconnect with themselves. When you share, rate, and review this podcast, you help us bring these powerful body-based tools to more people who need them, and we're really so grateful to be on this journey with you.